Call our meeting to order for the evening. First item on our agenda is approval of tonight's agenda.
Oh, there she is.
Oh,
Hi, Jenny.
Move to approve, Mr. Chair.
Second.
have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Citizens to be heard. Not that you aren't citizens, but I know you've got some information for us here shortly. Approval of the minutes of the June 2nd and 9th, 2015 meetings.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Approved payment of bills and vouchers.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Okay, Greater Fargo Ward Economic Development Corporation, come on up, gentlemen. Our semi-annual update.
Good morning. That's good, Jim.
In case you want to grill us.
Jim, Mark, and John, good evening.
Good evening.
So thank you, appreciate the opportunity to come in. We try to come twice a year and just update everybody on kind of where we're going and what's going on. And so through the end of May and into early June, we've been very busy. I think everybody's received all the statistics and data and information, but Mark's been very busy. He's done 65 business retention visits and assisted 14 businesses. We continue to help 12 new business projects in the area, and we're managing 3 existing ones. John, who is our Senior Vice President of Finance and Entrepreneurial Development, has been very active in some transition in our co-working space in Fargo for the region called COCO. It's an organization that came out of Minneapolis and started operation in September of 2014. Trying to get all my years straight. And as they've gone through the process, they have 3 operations in Minneapolis and St. Paul. And when they came here, they opened up their facility just at the corner of Broadway and 2nd. Yep. And they priced their model exactly the same as the Minneapolis-St. Paul, and didn't take into account this region, which being 1/10 of the size or more or less. So they really had a hard time working through that process. We still feel very strongly that a co-working space is very viable here under market conditions within our market in the Fargo-Moorhead area. So Emerging Prairie, which is an organization, is going to be operating that and should be actually kicking it off the first week in July. So it'll be a little bit different model. The pricing's considerably less, and we're very excited. We think it'll be a really good kind of opportunity for our startup community to have that in the market. So not to touch on a lot of the details that are already outlined in this, there are a couple things that I wanted to talk about. We did co-host with Enterprise Minnesota the State of Manufacturing event, and we drew 24 area manufacturers, and they were kind enough to include not only the Minnesota side, but the North Dakota side in their process, and felt that it was a good mix. And we also worked on a Emerging Prairie drone focus event, which brought 140 people into the Jet Center out at the airport for the first annual Fargo kind of Moorhead drone conference. And for something that was put together in 6 weeks, it was very well attended, had some very good speakers, and they've already set a date for next year. So a lot of people think that the UAS programs and everything are totally related to Grand Forks. Well, we're finding a lot of interest here because NDSU is doing a lot of the engineering, and people like to be near the engineering process. So we're getting a lot of outreach and a lot of startup companies that are really focused here in this market in that drone and UAS area. So we're very excited about that and feel that it'll be a growth opportunity for us. Some things that we really haven't talked much about in the report. but I wanted to talk about, we have an air service grant that we help support through your investment and others. If you remember, 2 years ago on February the 14th, we started having direct flight service from here to Dallas on American Airlines, and we committed $100,000 to that process where they drew down depending on what their occupancy rate was. I'll be happy to say that they're doing very well, and so we're canceling that agreement, which will give us an opportunity to file for another federal air service grant. And so we're working in conjunction with Hector. I think you might have read about it in the newspaper this morning that we're working with Hector to get a direct flight between here and Seattle. That's the good news. The bad news is that this fall, Delta, because pilot shortages and some other things, have decided to cancel their direct flight from here to Salt Lake City, which was a big blow because a lot of people would go through Salt Lake City to head further west or through Denver. So this is a loss. So it's very important that we finalize this flight to Seattle because we think it's very important. Decision will be made. Microsoft is providing us with a lot of their detailed information on flights, so they'd love to see this flight. So they're helping us with that, and we hope to have a decision in the fall and have a direct service in place sometime in the first or second quarter of 2016. We're also working with Hector and Delta on creating a daily flight between here and Atlanta. Right now we're seeing just a Saturday flight back and forth. It's done very well, so they're very interested in doing that, and it's really almost competition to what American does with Dallas. So I believe that sometime in 2016 that will come to fruition as well. So those would be two really strong flights to add to the market to get us both, kind of east central and west. So we're really pleased about those things. In working with Microsoft, we realized, and kind of get online right now, you might see a lot of jobs opened up in the marketing area for Microsoft. Microsoft has just selected the Fargo campus to be their headquarters for their cloud marketing programs in the United States. They've selected 3 facilities around the world, and the Fargo campus was selected. These will be marketing positions, not kind of developer positions, but they're still going to be, I think you looked at some of the salaries and
In the 60s.
yeah, they're in the 60s to start, and so they're I think good marketing jobs, which would be great for especially people coming right out of schools and with a business degree or a marketing degree, which we've been limited in that area. So I think this will add a whole new process for what they can do. They haven't really told us what the final numbers are going to be, but we think it'll be substantial. We think it'll be very, very substantial as they move forward. So those are all real positive things. So we continue to do our triad, if you will, our business development, which Mark's responsible for, and really working on existing businesses as well as doing some attraction. I don't know if you want to just give a quick update on the 2 conferences you went to.
I attended 2 conferences. We had targeted industries, and just coming into 2015, we decided to add 3 more industries to our targeted attraction efforts: distribution, data centers, and why am I drawing a blank? I should know this stuff.
Embedded technology.
Embedded technology. One of the conferences, trade shows that we went to, we partnered with the city of Moorhead. Matt Maslowski and I partnered and went with Minnesota Department of Economic Development and Employment to the big data center conference in Las Vegas, probably 2 months ago, and learned a lot about that industry and what we need to do and what we need to do to be competitive and attract some of that opportunity. We think Moorhead has, in Clay County in general, has some substantial advantages and opportunities to attract data centers, which in part, just to summarize why they fit our market.
Could you just repeat that one more time? About Clay County.
Clay County being,
Yeah.
having some significant advantages for data centers. And it's really true, because what's important to them is flood control. You'll like that they are high property value opportunities, and they don't necessarily create a lot of jobs in each particular data center. The jobs that they create would be in the several dozen, but they're very high-paying jobs, so it wouldn't add a lot of stress to our tight employment situation, but it would bring a lot of value and a lot of other reasons why that we feel it's a good fit. So we'll continue to focus on that, working with the city of Moorhead in the county where applicable, and Minnesota Department of Economic Development moving forward.
So, and the other area that we're obviously focused in is the entrepreneurial area. There's a lot of activity. We still see real growth in those areas. We're seeing some really unique concepts. We had a great announcement a couple weeks ago at 1 Million Cups with the kind of bringing together BotLink and Packet Digital. I'm getting old, and if John wasn't here, I wouldn't be able to remember anything. I noticed I didn't include you. It's really great to see these young companies growing and pulling together and joining forces for some really unique things in the UAS area. And they're out raising $15 million right now because they've gotten some really great awards and interest from the military and some other places. So we think that's going to be a great opportunity in the marketplace. And then the final thing is workforce. Thursday morning at 7:30, we're going to be doing the final report out for the workforce study that we've done. And we're very excited about that. We think it's really great information and great data, and it will help us, but it's really not the end, it's the start. So it's going to be the community, it's going to be government in all levels, and the community coming together to try to answer this workforce issue. And I think that as it being probably, and everybody will disagree with me, they might think the diversion is, but I think the workforce issue is probably the most single biggest issue that Cass and Clay County faces in the next 10 to 15 years. If we really want to grow and sustain our businesses and make sure that they're growing at the rates that they have been growing, that we want them to grow. So that's where we are. We appreciate your continued support, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for these?
For many years, we were also wondering how we could keep our college students here in this community. And I would hope that with these types of new work efforts that are coming, you mentioned the Microsofts with the $67,000 starting jobs. Hopefully we're going to start seeing some of our homegrown folks staying here, homegrown in that.
Yeah, it's one of there's 4 main key points in the workforce study, and one of them is the maintenance of those, because they looked at a labor shed analysis for our area, which is 11 counties. It even goes up into the Grand Forks area because of the cross-pollination and how much people we draw back and forth between the two. And we have gotten higher retention rates over the last several years because of newer jobs and stuff. But it was one of the top priorities within the workforce study is we need to do a better job of that. We need to understand what they're looking for, educate them on, they don't necessarily need a philosophy degree if they're going to work around here, because that doesn't work. I get to say that because that's what my son got his degree in. He's still looking for work now. But it's very, that's a big key component of what we need to do within the workforce. So. Thank you. Good.
Thank you. Appreciate it, gentlemen.
Have a good evening.
Should you be nice job. Elder Abuse Awareness Proclamation. Come on up, ladies.
You just need one.
I'm not going to join the group. We have a number of people here presenting to you today on adult protection and elder abuse awareness. So I'm going to let the experts hear the conversation.
Okay, who's the first expert?
Should we introduce ourselves first?
Yeah,
And then I'll
please.
start us off. So,
My name is Shirley Carlson. I'm the Elder Abuse Project Coordinator at the Rape and Abuse Crisis Center.
Pat Boyer, Social Services.
Lori Conroy, Clay County Attorney's Office.
I'm Mary Anderson. I'm the Elder Abuse Forensic Network Coordinator at Rape and Abuse Crisis Center.
And Kathy Norris, I do adult protection.
Okay.
Okay.
Pat, maybe when we're speaking, we want to try to have him talk a little bit.
Okay, I will start us off today, and I think you guys got this in your board packet, correct? Okay. So I just wanted to, I'm not going to read it out to you, but I just wanted to highlight the numbers that we're seeing in 2014. Clay County received 566 common entry point reports for vulnerable adult, suspected vulnerable adult maltreatment. When a report comes in, then a lead investigative agency is selected. So out of all those reports, some come to the county, and then Kathy is our one and only adult protection worker who investigates the reports that come to the county. So of all those reports, 163 came to Kathy and were investigated. And the rest of them go to the state, either Department of Health, DHS, or it might go to law enforcement too as the lead investigative agency, if there's criminal action. As of July 1st, the state of Minnesota is going to have everybody call one number in Minnesota rather than to call 87 different counties to report. We haven't yet received that number from the state yet, but once we get it, we'll be starting to market it out to everybody. Yeah, we're not getting trained until June 25th, I think.
For July 1st?
For July 1st, yeah. So that is going to be called MARC, Minnesota Adult Abuse Reporting Center. And so if we start to get phone calls at the county, we'll be getting them all to the state or telling them all, you got to call the state now. So we won't be getting those. And what I thought we might be able to get from Kathy is I asked Kathy if she could share with us just a couple of what's a typical report and investigation that she goes out on.
Okay. And first, I'm just going to correct one thing Pat said.
Oh, sorry.
That 164 reports came to the county. There were actually 253. And I investigated 164. About 35% were screened out. So
Yeah, those were the ones you investigated.
Yeah, she got that part right, but we did get more. We don't investigate everything that comes in. So, a lot of the ones we've been getting lately, we've been getting a lot of financial exploitation. And people are kind of flabbergasted that this is a crime. We were investigating, and anything that's a crime, we also send over to law enforcement. So we received a report of a woman who was guardian conservator for her brother. He was in placement, and she wasn't paying his bill. So I send it to law enforcement, and we do a joint interview, and she is just angry, and she cannot believe that this would be considered a crime. Why in the world would I'm the bad guy in this one, send it on to law enforcement? So I'm real pleased to be getting a greater awareness out there that this is a crime, and we are taking it seriously, and law enforcement is taking it seriously. So we've been getting a lot of those. About half of what I get is self-neglect. So this is, I got a report on a very friendly 88-year-old gentleman who was out walking on New Year's Eve and couldn't find his house. And a neighbor helped him. He knew the address, brought him to his home, and no, that didn't look quite right. So she went in with him, and oh yeah, that was it. That looked familiar. This was his house. So being a good neighbor, she called it in on January 2nd. And I visited with the gentleman. He had been to the hospital and just gotten out, so he was a little confused maybe. And typically does walk a lot, so his being out walking was not unusual. Talked to some neighbors, and because he's a widower with no children. He's got a brother and a sister. Talked to both of them. He was getting some home care, or we got him some home care, and things were going to be well and fine. Thought it'd be good. And it was for a couple of months, but then I just got another report on him just last week that he no longer wanted the home care, seemed a little bit more forgetful. The home care agency had done a mini mental status exam on him, which is just a screening tool to determine cognitive abilities, which he did worse on. So I got another report, so I go back out and going to start working with him again. He did agree he would let the home care people keep coming back, so seeing if we can stopgap. Probably he's going to need a guardian at some point. That you know, he's managing, but there are a lot of concerns about how well he's going to be doing going down the road. So, and in some of those cases, you know, we try the home care, we try to step up home care, try to work with families to see if they can get somebody to be accepting more help. And you pretty much got to develop a relationship that, you know, you need to find out the person and their history before you can say that, yeah, there's no less restrictive alternative than going with a guardian.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right, so next, we're going to have Shelley give us some information.
Well, Pat asked me to just kind of give the Clay County Commission a little bit of an update since 2009, when Clay County, through the County Attorney's Office, applied for and was awarded the Abuse and Labor Life Grant from the Office of Violence Against Women. As you know, we had the grant at the County Attorney's Office from 2009 to 2013. We were able to get a 1 year additional time with the 3-year grant, so it became 4 years. And because Clay County did such an amazing job, the Rape and Abuse Crisis Center applied for the grant to continue those services and implement them in Cass County, and they were awarded the grant. So that is why I'm now coordinating that. Their grant was awarded in 2012. We are now in the 3rd year. We will be applying for a no-cost extension in July, so it will more than likely be a 4-year grant also for Cass County. I also wanted to give kudos to Clay County. I am on the Minnesota Elder Justice Center's Board of Directors, and we have an intern at the Minnesota Elder Justice Center doing research for every county in the state of Minnesota. And when I was down for a board meeting, they said that the intern, she didn't know about this program. She said, what is going on in Clay County? They are so educated. They've been to training. Their adult protection worker works with law enforcement and the prosecutors. They have services available. And it was a real anomaly throughout the state. So kudos to Clay County for really being on the forefront and taking the initiative to do something like this for our vulnerable adult population. As you know, with the Clay County grant, we started an Elder Abuse Coordinated Community Response Team, and Clay County has taken the lead on that. And they joined with the Cass County Elder Abuse Coordinated Community Response Team now in January. So now we are truly a community coalition responding to and having discussions about how to best serve the elder population and combat elder abuse in our community. Friday will be the 5th annual World Elder Abuse Awareness Day event. It's going to be held here in Clay County. The World Elder Abuse event has only been going on for 10 years. So again, Clay County is already year number 5. So we are ahead of the curve on so many communities across the entire United States. And I believe that Pat has submitted a proclamation that we are hoping the Clay County Commission will sign for that. And please go ahead and register and attend the event. We have 2 national speakers coming in, one from Seattle, one from California. Thursday, we're holding an advanced elder abuse detective training. Very limited number of attendees because it's really for detectives, sergeants, lieutenants, and upper administration law enforcement. But we are inviting our prosecutors and our APS workers so that it's a coordinated response versus just law enforcement on their own. So our 2 national speakers agreed to then stay over and speak at our event on Friday.
Good.
Any questions?
And I just wanted to add one more thing about just the coordination. Kathy and I recently met with Cass County and their adult protection staff, and we are working out some jurisdictional issues because the definitions and how we investigate are different in both states. And the state person from North Dakota is going to connect with our state person at DHS, and we are going to start meeting more often. And we've never done that before in all my years at Clay County. So, okay, Lori.
I was going to As indicated earlier, my name is Lori Conroy. I'm one of the prosecutors here in Clay County. As you well know, there are 8 of us in the office. My caseload includes crimes against people, and people including vulnerable adults and the elderly. One thing I think we've talked about before is in Minnesota, there's no bright line age that makes an individual a vulnerable adult. In Minnesota, the law identifies either someone as a categorical vulnerable adult or a functional vulnerable adult. Categorical is that they receive services or they're at a facility or any one of a number of things. Someone who is receiving home health care, for example, would be a categorical vulnerable adult. And it's not defined by age. You don't hit 65 and become a vulnerable adult or an elder. That's not how our law is written. A functional vulnerable adult is someone who has, by virtue of mental or physical conditions, is not able to care for themselves. And so in our office, my caseload does include crimes against the elderly, crimes against children, domestic assault, things of that nature. We don't designate or track our numbers based upon age because crimes involving the elderly could be any type of crime. It's burglary, it's theft, it's domestic assault, it is perhaps financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. But you can see where it gets a bit murky if you start thinking, well, this is an elder abuse case. Well, really, it's charged as domestic assault because that is elder abuse as well. We have, in our office right now, I was just trying to kind of think about cases. We have current cases involving thefts of controlled substances from individuals who were targeted because of their vulnerability. We have burglary cases from individuals residing in facilities by employees. And I can't mention those things without saying that not only have we had a very great response from law enforcement and from Adult Protective Services, but from the facilities that are in Clay County, reporting these to law enforcement, working with law enforcement to find individuals who are perpetrating on residents. And so I think that there is education that has gone on. And I came into this position in 12, so at the tail end of the grant. So many of these things were already in place when I assumed this caseload. We have, in addition to the burglary and theft cases prosecuted within the last year, financial exploitation of vulnerable adult cases involving the elderly. Those cases can either be because someone has a fiduciary relationship with the individual, in that they're the power of attorney, they're the guardian, they're the conservator, or they have perpetrated by virtue of fraud or coercion or duress. We see more of the fiduciary relationship type cases, and quite frankly, those are easier for us to prosecute than to show someone who has diminished capacity was perpetrated on by somebody causing them to be coerced. That's hard because the victims in these cases are not necessarily able to communicate with us like other folks can. And we have cases where at the beginning of the investigation, that individual is with us, and at the end, they have passed away. So those are some of the challenges that we see as we're prosecuting these cases. I also think it's important to understand, and one of the things that I learned through training by one of the speakers who will come in and train in Cass County, North Dakota, and here at World Elder Abuse Awareness Day on Friday, is that justice in elder abuse cases doesn't necessarily mean a crime is charged, and it doesn't necessarily mean that there's a conviction. It may mean that the more appropriate thing to do is to have social services find maltreatment against the perpetrator, which is a lower burden of proof than we have in the criminal justice system. And it's also something that can be tracked so those individuals don't find themselves working in an environment where they can perpetrate again. You also have to look at the family relationships between an individual who has stolen or taken advantage of an elderly person, that they may be family members. And so by virtue of being charged criminally and having to go through that process, you're causing more stress on that individual. So we've had cases where we've worked out agreements where there's an admission, there is a commitment to repay money, but there is no criminal conviction. And we do try to keep in mind in these cases and think outside the box when it comes to resolution, keeping in mind that we don't want to add additional stress to someone who's already vulnerable by virtue of their age and their medical conditions. So in addition to those things, we have been able, and I've benefited from a close working relationship. When you only have one adult protective services worker, I said, you know, the wonderful thing about Tiggers is I'm the only one. So there's only one Kathy, and we know that she's the person that we go to when we're talking about these things. But within Clay County, we have multiple agencies, law enforcement agencies. There is a great working relationship with the Moorhead Police Department, Adult Protective Services in our office. We'd like to expand that. That's one of our goals in Clay County. But we have met as a multidisciplinary team prior to the advent of the Elder Abuse Forensic Network that Mary will be talking about here in a few minutes. We continue to have conversations outside those meetings about what is happening in cases and what can we do. And those, I think, are really important because we're not operating independent of each other. We know what the left hand is doing and vice versa. I think some of the challenges that we continue to face are education, as Kathy mentioned, and what is a crime, what isn't a crime. Oftentimes in these cases you have family disputes that might be family disputes, or it might be something more. It might be financial exploitation. It might be neglect to try to protect assets for someone who might succeed through the death of an individual. I think training, like we said, those outlying jurisdictions that have law enforcement agencies that haven't taken advantage of this, we want to continue to do that. And resources. With additional cases come more tax on attorneys, tax on law enforcement. So those are some of the challenges that I see facing us. And we're hoping that we get a great response on Friday. We have a great number of people registered. And I think this training in North Dakota, we're able to kind of dovetail in and benefit from Cass County's grant. And it's led to some really unique things that are coming up. And I'm excited for you to hear about the Elder Abuse Forensic Network. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. As I said earlier, my name is Mary Anderson, and I'm the Elder Abuse Forensic Network Coordinator at Rape and Abuse Crisis Center. One thing that I do want to point out is because of the grants that Cass and Clay County have received, one thing that the CCR had identified was a gaps of service, was an area for the communities to come together to combat elder abuse. And with that kind of came the idea of the Elder Abuse Forensic Network. We're considered a network because really it's a network of many professionals on both sides of the river. We have a multidisciplinary team that meets once a month, and the purpose is to conduct case reviews of complex cases of elder abuse. We started reviewing cases in December 2014, and since then we have reviewed 16 cases of complex elder abuse. We've seen things from a missing person to financial exploitation, and it's each time that we meet, our team is getting together tighter and tighter, and it's been very beneficial. We conduct the cases at Rape and Abuse Crisis Center. It's kind of a central location for both communities. And right now we are only currently serving Cass and Clay counties, which is interesting because in Clay County, it's one county. In North Dakota, the state is divided up into regions, and they have a few more counties that they serve. Our members of the MDT are Adult Protective Services from Clay and Cass counties. We have the Cass County Sheriff's Department. We have Fargo, Moorhead, and West Fargo police officers that sit in. We have the Clay County Attorney's Office, Cass County State's Attorney's Office. We have a registered nurse from Fargo Public Health and also a deputy coroner from Cass County. So we really have a wide range of members that have a broad spectrum of knowledge and skills. How the cases are reviewed is a referring professional will send the referral form directly to me. Currently, only law enforcement and adult protective services and the coroner are able to refer cases. That is to really follow both states' guidelines on mandated reporting. And then it's my job to set the agenda for the meeting. The referring professional comes and staffs the case to the MDT, and each professional at that time is given the opportunity to make recommendations regarding further action. It is referring professionals' case, and they decide how they're going to proceed. They can take the recommendations, or they may choose not to. One thing that I do want to definitely really emphasize is all members follow strict lines of confidentiality. What is spoken at this meeting does not leave outside of the meeting, because there might be ongoing investigations, and we want to make sure that everything is protected. We also have found some of the benefits of the network already is with the combined knowledge and skills from the diverse professionals. They're able to communicate, and it's often a very time-saving event. We're not waiting to call somebody, waiting for a call back. We have all the key players right there at the table that can offer advice. We're also very fortunate that we have committed professionals who want to serve the victim in the most efficient and effective way. And also the collaboration has really increased awareness about the difficult cases that we've seen. And it's also a supportive environment for everybody involved. Our goals for the network is to continue to resolve complex cases of elder abuse, assist with possible prosecution, and continue to identify system problems or gaps in services that we can help to address.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we would ask you to read the proclamation and sign it, and then any questions you
Mr.
might
Chair,
have.
I have one question for Kathy, if I could. Kathy, you mentioned that elderly gentleman that you talked about. Now, that sounds to me more like adult protection, more so than elder abuse.
It is.
But do they overlap?
Yes. You know, a lot of times, I might get a report where somebody has alleged daughter is stealing all the money. You
I
come
can
in
understand
and alleged daughter is the caregiver and mom thinks everybody is stealing the money. So it's more of a self-neglect. Sometimes there is both self-neglect and maltreatment by somebody else.
Thank you.
Okay, the proclamation is as follows. Whereas Clay County seniors are valued members of society, and it is our collective responsibility to ensure they live safely and with dignity. Whereas abuse of older people is a tragedy inflicted on vulnerable seniors and an ever-increasing problem in today's society that crosses all socioeconomic boundaries. Whereas combating abuse of older people will help improve the quality of life for all seniors across the state and country, and will allow seniors to continue to live as independently as possible and contribute to the life and vibrancy of Clay County. Whereas Clay County seniors will be treated with respect and dignity to enable them to continue to serve as leaders, mentors, volunteers, and important and active members of the community. Whereas we are all responsible for building safe communities by watching for and reporting possible abuse. Whereas the Clay County Coordinated Community Response Team will hold the event No Excuse for Elder Abuse on Friday, June 19th, 2015, in observance of World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. Now therefore, in recognition of World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, we, the Commissioners of Clay County, proclaim the 19th day of June, 2015 as Elder Abuse Awareness Day in Clay County, and encourage all Clay County citizens to recognize and celebrate the accomplishments of Clay County seniors.
I would move the proclamation.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Any questions for these ladies?
Good work. You're really on top of the ball. We
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Very good.
Yeah, it's nice that you come and report to us, but at the same time, you're reporting it to the public. These meetings are replayed, and this is a very important message to send out to all of the citizens of Clay County. Thank you for being here.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you, ladies. Okay, next item, Darren. Oh, it's not there. Oh, it's Brian. Oh, okay.
Such a disappointment.
Yeah, really.
No. Thank you.
Well, you want to go?
Go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, other members of the commission. I guess you're well aware of why I'm here this evening. You received a copy of the letter of resignation that Tom Filiuzzi, our Veteran Service Officer, had submitted a week or so ago, and his effective retirement date or resignation date is June 22nd, so next Monday, so it's coming up pretty quick. And what I have before you that is a request to go ahead and advertise for replacement of his position. And then we've got a couple additional requests or discussion points after if you will approve the replacement. And I do have a handout. We normally don't send these out in the board packets, but the HR, Darren, prepares this for each department. There's a couple there. And that just shows the top line. If you want to go all the way over, it'll show what the regular salary is. It's budget, or I shouldn't say all the way over it, to the last 4 or 5 blocks. You'll show the regular salary, and then you show what the benefit package is, and then it shows you the total salary and benefit package of what it costs Clay County to have that employee. And you'll see that the outgoing employee, as of the 22nd of June, will consume the $44,000 of the $88,000 total benefit package. And then if you want to jump down to the box here, if we fill this by approximately sometime in August or 1st of September, it'll take that long to fill that position. Even if we get started on it right away, there will be a savings to the budget this year of, something between $15,000 and $20,000, depending upon when we hire and what level we hire at. So with this replacement, just to let you know that the position is budgeted to be filled for the rest of the year.
I would move that we move forward with replacing the County Veteran Service Officer position.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. No question, it's a critical position for the county, so Jenny?
I'll reiterate that Tom did a fantastic job over there, and we'll definitely miss him. My question is, are you anticipating a need to hire at a different step based on experience? I know that in the past you've had that
Right.
with some department heads.
Well, Mr. Chair and Mr. Mojo, we're authorized to hire within the first 3 steps, depending upon what their level of experience is and performance and things. And if not, we'll come back to you and make a request to the full board. So.
Okay, and then we want to formulate a plan here for replacement and an interview panel. And
Right.
I think we talked about this earlier when Tom indicated he was leaving. And,
Right.
and I'm the board rep with the Veteran Service Office, and I think Commissioner Campbell had indicated he was interested, at least last time we talked about it. So if
Sure. Well, and just for some logic to it, Mr. Chair, you two are on the PIC committee, and you're the past president or chair and current chair. So that would be good representation if you choose to follow along with that.
Yeah, I want to echo what Commissioner Mojo also said about Tom. I've been involved with this when this thing started back when we used to have, it was less than a half-time position, and we've taken this to way more of what is deserved by all county veterans in Clay County, and I'm really proud of Tom and the work that he did, and I wish him well in his retirement, and I just hope that we can find somebody to fill those shoes of Tom's moving forward. And I'd love to work on that with Commissioner Wayland.
I don't think there's any question. We've got the best Veteran Service Office in the state, and I think lots of other people around the state recognize that,
Right.
and then Tom gets credit for that since he's been here. He's done an outstanding job. So,
Well, and that's very true, and he's done an outstanding job. and he's had the support of this county board. And you guys need to be complimented for supporting that. That's not always the case either. So that's been very, very good.
You will be missed.
And we do have somewhat of a time schedule put together, but that'll be flexible. But we'll get going on advertising for the position, and then we'll work on the selection questions and work with you two on other members that you choose to have on that. I know you were, Mr. Chair, we're going to talk to the Yellow Ribbon Campaign, and because I'm sure you'll want to, or we talked about the fact that you want representation from the veterans groups, and you know, sometimes we like to keep it limited to 5-6 people, but with this type, when I think there's 11 different veterans groups that are probably represented in the county, so you know, it doesn't hurt. It could be a broad.
I would like to put out a request, though, that we include one of our former commissioners, Mike McCarthy. He was kind of instrumental too in a lot of what's gone on there. Very good.
He's already indicated he's interested.
Good, that'd be good.
Okay,
I think
is
that's
that
it, Mr.
okay with
Chairman.
other commissioners?
Do you want a motion?
Sure.
I'll make a motion that Commissioners Whalen and Campbell serve on that job search committee.
Mr. Chair, have we voted on the motion first that Kevin made? I think we should do that first.
I thought we did.
No.
No, we did. We didn't.
Did we?
To replace the job? Yeah, we did. We already voted
Yeah,
on
I think
that.
we voted. I voted aye, I know that.
Yeah. Did you second Jenny's motion, Wayne, on this?
Of course.
Okay.
Smart man.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries.
And that I included the first motion in the event that it did, right? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, committee reports. Wayne?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Friday, June 12th, for Lake Agassiz Regional Library, at an executive meeting for the Northern Lights Library Network, and the meeting regarded the annual meeting and also an upcoming audit. Today, June 16th, Local Advisory Council for Adult Mental Health. General business, and we had a presentation by a gentleman named Larry Lauder, who is administrator of Community and Behavioral Health Hospital, which is located in Fergus Falls. A very interesting presentation. We had agency reports from Clay County Social Services, Place for Hope, Solutions, the Warren Police Department, Lakeland Mental Health, and then we had some consumer concerns. And that is my report.
Thank you. Jenny?
After the commission meeting last week, I went over to Lakes and Prairies to chat with Steve Nagel. Right now, he is in the process of taking over for Jill Peterson, and I really think that that's going to be a great thing to ease the burden while they look for the new director. And they continue to do great things over there. Wednesday, Tim Magnuson from the planning, Brian, and I met with Dwayne Hubert from about the possibility of including some solar energy in Clay County projects in the future. The opportunity to save the county money is huge with that. We also, after that meeting, received a check from the Wind on the Wires because of the ROLOG wind towers, and I just think that it's maybe something we should definitely look into further as we maybe in our new projects. I also appreciated Wanzek Construction was there and talked a lot about the employees that worked on that project, and there are an enormous amount of employees from Cass and Clay County that worked on that, and I appreciate having local construction dollars go into the area. Thursday, I had the Soil and Water District meeting. We talked a little bit about legislative updates and how that will affect, but unfortunately, the special session had not happened yet, so there's a lot of unknowns on the buffer strip initiative and so forth. The space continues to be an issue for them where they'll end up leasing, but we do have a meeting coming up on the possibility for some county space for them to move into, and that concludes my reports.
Thank you. Yeah, it was nice to get that check for the wind energy, and I, for one, will try and complain less about the wind after getting that check, so windy days, so. Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This last week, make sure I get my week right here. We had the I went to the diversion public outreach meeting last Wednesday, and it was pretty much the routine stuff. We got an update on the environmental studies that goes on by the engineers that deal with looking for artifacts and things like that throughout the whole ditch process, and getting right-of-way entries and those types of things. Heard a report on that. Terry from the Corps was there talking a little bit more about the cemetery study that's been released by the Corps. And there was some discussion about where NDSU is right now with their study with the ag. I think that's going to, everybody's just kind of really waiting for that. That's going to be a really important one to see what NDSU says about that. And Brian, I'm going to have to let Brian talk about the actual diversion authority meeting. I was out of town on Thursday and could not attend that meeting, but I know Brian was there. You were there, right? You told me you were going to be there. Good. And then today, I had two meetings today. We had a PIC meeting today, and that was primarily focused on a new position that's going to be coming forward that has to do with solid waste. And I think I had talked to you all about the last meeting where we were short on the solid waste that was being sent to Perham, and we weren't meeting our commitment. And in discussing it with Steve from Morehead, they have a driver issue, and so the recommendation is for Clay County to provide the driver that will be bring that material from Morehead to Perham. In addition to that, there's going to be another, that person will also then be transporting, provided that the county invests in a tractor, we will then also take over the leachate delivery, which now we hire out, and we spend, I think last year we spent $117,000 just in transporting the leachate from the landfill to Fargo. By having our own driver and our own tractor, we can probably do that for $60,000 a year.
Is that the new position you're talking about?
Yes, that new position would have a dual purpose.
Would we need to invest in a trailer as well, or just the tractor?
Well, right now, we would need both, and right now we're...
The city would provide the trailer for the transport to Perham, but we'd need a trailer for
a tanker
the leachate.
For the leachate.
Yeah.
And so the trailer will be provided for Morehead for what we transport to Perham. The same tractor could also then be used to pull the leachate trailer that would go from the landfill. We'll be able to, when we actually give the presentation and Kirk comes in with Darren, you'll see that even though, you know, this position is going to cost us money, it's probably going to pay back more than the cost of the investment. So it's and it's really going to help the city of Morehead. Keep in mind, it's our responsibility to get that that's not merchandise, but that.
Do we incur any fines for not meeting our end of the contract?
Well, we don't, but it, you know, we went in there and told them that we would agree to 9,000 tons per year. And when we tell somebody and we agree to something, we need to uphold that. even though there's no fines, we need to do what we can
The
to.
success of that operation is
Right.
based on our
And-
commitment,
and-
partly on our commitment.
And
to them,
keep
so.
in mind, if they don't have enough waste there, they don't produce the energy, which then makes the facility cost more to run, which
Right.
they'll come back and ask us to pay more.
I understand that. I'm just trying to see if because we're not holding our end up of the contract, are we going to save any money by investing in a tractor and/or trailer to haul our own?
I don't know that we're going to, I mean, you could theoretically say that we're going to save money from the Prairie Lakes facility because they're going to have the adequate garbage there to burn to generate the revenue. The revenue, the expense of the facility is still going to happen whether they generate the steam or not.
Right.
So in answer to your question, I think there's,
It's in our best interest.
and it's definitely in our best interest. And then after that, we had, this afternoon, I also had the Highway Tracking Committee meeting. And we went over a new over-dimension permit that deals with larger than normal sized trucks that go on our roads. And we approved of a plan there that'll come, Dave will be presenting to our board here probably at the next meeting. He gave us an update on the online credit cards fees that they use there, and they've changed the vendor that they're using. And there's actually going to be a savings to his budget because the price per transaction has been reduced by making the change. And we've had this discussion over time about the Holly shop relocation, and that's moving along. There's some land that we're interested in for replacement, and I know, Jenny, I want to talk to you a little bit about that. It is in your district. And at some point, our Highway Tracking Committee is going to be recommending that we put an offer in on that property, even though we're probably looking at a 2017 construction timeframe. But it's your district, and we want to update you on some things there before we move forward with that. And then the pavement preservation, if you recall, we had our 5-year plan, and then in addition to the 5-year plan, he had a list of several projects with different dollar amounts, and he put a priority ranking to that, which is really good. And he's going to be bringing that as a report to all of you so you can see how we all in our districts have different people asking different questions about when something might be done. This report that they've generated, they spent some time on it, will help us adequately rank a project based on the cost, the traffic, the number of vehicles, and all that kind of stuff. So, and then there's an ATV club request in the gravel pit area, and Dave has kind of asked us to hold off on that, and we agreed to do that. That concludes my report.
Okay, I had attended the Wind Energy event, the PIC meeting Kevin already reported on, with the truck driving position, at an EDC executive committee meeting last week, and the representatives there reported pretty much on what we discussed at our last meeting. We did have a jail meeting yesterday, and we had a lengthy meeting and had a lot of discussion on you know, where we're actually going to put the jail based on us trying to accumulate the property north of the campus here. And I think we did make a final decision that we are going to build the jail south of the existing jail and law enforcement center. And then as we acquire the property to the north, we'll look at the new law enforcement center somewhere, you know, depending on what happens there for the future. And we had another discussion, and if Frank and Jenny are amenable, we would like to have a subcommittee with you two on it, based on the other committees that you're on, to to start looking at incorporating what we would do to address mental health issues in the new jail. And I think you brought up the solar issues, and we think that's an excellent suggestion and has a lot of potential, I think, to help us with our project. So if you're willing, and I assume Frank will appoint him because he's not here, so that will teach him to be here in the future. So,
Mr. Chairman, I would like to move that we have Commissioner Mojo and Gross serve on a subcommittee of the jail that deals with mental health issues, and to some degree the solar issues. That's going to be worked on through several, but I know that Commissioner Mojo has had a real interest in that, so I think it would be good for her to work on that as well.
with per diem.
With per diem.
Second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposing, motion carries. Thank you. Brian?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Georgia informed me yesterday that the elevator project over at the Family Service Center is complete and passed inspection. She will be bringing the final bill once she gets the C-134 signed off on, so she'll bring that in very soon. So it's nice to have that behind us. Wind energy project was talked about. The solar energy, I think that's just, it's very enthusiastic. Again, thank Commissioner Mojo for suggesting that and bringing that forward. I think that's something we need to look with every project that we do. And since we have this huge project facing us, staring us in the face, I think it's going to be a real time well spent in coordinating that. Jail planning project has been talked about, and you appointed that committee. That's great. And there will be others then from social service and public health and jail administration on that committee, and we'll put that together and get that going. I think that's a very important fact. We did have a land management meeting. It was quite quick. One of the things that is of concern, I won't say to the land management committee because we didn't talk about it, but there was one hardship case that was purchased on the Minnesota side last year, and they did not finish the project, and Clay County has been asked to get involved in that. We are going to be meeting with them, and then we'll bring that to you folks for your consideration to see what you want to do with it. So we'll have dialogue on that after we find out a little more what needs to be done.
If you would like me to be on that, because I'm on the land management committee, if you'd like me to sit in on that, I'd be more than welcome or willing to do that.
Great, thank you. Appreciate that. And then we did have a diversion meeting after that, or the diversion board met, I should say. They went into closed session for over an hour and a half, a long time, and had a lot of discussion about the lawsuit and what they felt they could do and couldn't do and how they were going to approach it. And I think came out of there with saying that they would support Oxbow's involvement in the lawsuit, and explanation to the judge, because what it does, it leaves some people that are building houses, not necessarily the individuals as much as the contractors. The contractors are limited. A lot of them are people that just build 3 and 4 and 5 homes a year, and they've obligated their time here. So they're going to be moving forward with that. So that was really the big discussion at the diversion meeting, and it took a lot of time. Spent some time, Tim and I, on the answering questions and communicating with people north of the courthouse here in regards to our project. Had a meeting with Mike Redlinger from the city, reference sewer lines and water lines and different things that would need to be done. That was talked about at the construction meeting yesterday. And it was also talked about at Highway. We met with the township representative and HERT representative on the highway building, and that's already been talked about. Jail construction's already been talked about, and been covered there. And what the committee has some solid recommendations, and the architect will be bringing a PowerPoint to the board in the near future with then a recommendation for the board to consider. So hopefully we're going to be pretty tight together. And then we had highway tracking, and that was covered in big meeting that's been covered. So I think that covers all the meetings that I attended.
Okay, thank you. Any other issues? Okay, we're adjourned, and we'll be back at